We are now.
All right, thank you. I'm going to go ahead and call to order our meeting for today, and that was for the Justice Reinvestment Program Grant Review Committee meeting. It's scheduled for today, Monday, the 13th of May. We're scheduled to go from 3 up to 4:30. Chair is hoping that we'll finish our work a little early to give everyone the opportunity to go on their way. With that said, I'd like to go ahead and welcome everyone. And I think we need to go ahead and do a roll call on this one.
Yes, I'll go ahead and do that.
Okay.
Chair Przonski.
Here.
DA Perlow. Not here. Chief Scale has indicated that he would not be able to attend. Chief Administrative Officer Norden.
Present.
Representative Krupp. And then Sarah Stewart indicated she would not be able to attend today. And then Director Gowie-Ran.
Here.
And then Justice James, I don't believe he's on the call either. And then Commissioner Ojero.
Present.
Sheriff Morrissey O'Donnell.
Present.
And then Representative Conrad.
Present.
Okay, we've taken roll, Senator.
All right, and just for the record, Ian, we do have a quorum of voting members.
That is correct.
All right, then let's go ahead and move to our second item of the agenda, and that is public comment. This is the time to allow anyone from the public who wants to make comment to do so. So the chair will open it up for anyone who might be here wanting to give public comment. I am not seeing anyone raising hands. I've not heard anyone say anything. Ian, just confirm the same from you.
Yes, that's the same.
All right, so let's go ahead and close the public comment. We'll move into item number 3, which is the review of the second year funding applications. And I believe we're working with Clackamas County today. Ian, you and Catherine are going to lead the discussion, please.
All right, happy to do so. So for the record, my name is Ian Davidson. I'm the Justice Reinvestment Program Manager, and I'm joined here today with Catherine Callan. She's the Senior Research Analyst. She'll speak to you in a few minutes about some of the data with regards to Clackamas County. I'd also like to acknowledge that we're joined today by Captain Malcolm McDonald from Clackamas County's Community Corrections, as well as the Deputy Director, Chris Chandler. So if in the event you all pose a question to me about Clackamas County or Clackamas County's application that I am unable to answer, you could take the opportunity to pose that question to either of those two gentlemen. Okay, so before we look specifically at Clackamas County's application, as is somewhat normal for these meetings, a little bit of background for the Justice Reinvestment Program. We did just call roll. I do want to note that we are now joined by District Attorney Perlow. And so with that, we now have a quorum +1 of voting members. However, as you all are familiar with, there is a bit of a quirk with this grant review committee where not every member actually has a vote. However, as I've said in the past, every member does have a voice. And so there's generally been good debate and good discussion in this group. I would expect the same for today's meeting, even if the roll call vote doesn't include everyone's name. The Justice Reinvestment Program, as you all are familiar with, is a decade-old program that funds counties to allow them to plan, implement, and expand initiatives that allow them to assess individuals and then place them within the community and provide them with appropriate sanctions, services, and programs that are designed to achieve the goals of the Justice Reinvestment Program, which are to reduce prison usage and reduce recidivism while ensuring public safety and holding individuals accountable. And then I want to note that when we talk about prison usage in the context of justice reinvestment, we're talking about property, drug, and driving crimes exclusively. We're not talking about violent crime. As I think all of you are familiar with, the Justice Reinvestment Grant Review Committee is also somewhat unique in the grant decision-making process as articulated in Oregon Revised Statute. So the decision that you all make today is ultimately a recommendation that then goes to the Criminal Justice Commission. And then as outlined in law, they have one of two options before them. They can either approve your recommendation or they can return your recommendation for reconsideration back to you. If that does occur, then we'll meet again and restart this process. You all could ultimately send the same recommendation, a different recommendation, and we'll play that by ear if it comes to that. But know that your decision today is a recommendation to the commission, and then the commission has these two options before them. In terms of that recommendation, you, broadly speaking, have two recommendations to choose from with this particular instance. So with Clackamas County, the decision before you today is whether or not to approve second-year funding. As you all may recall, in the fall when you met, you recommended that Clackamas County receive 1-year provisional funding. This is the opportunity you have to review and reconsider Clackamas County, the answers that they provided, the work that they've initiated, and then to make a decision or a recommendation about whether or not to fund them for a second year or to not fund them for a second year. The key distinctions here is that if you do approve second year funding or recommend that, they would be awarded funds for 2 years. The project period would be extended to the end of December 2025. And then we as CJC staff would continue to provide technical assistance to them if they wish that from us. Now, if by contrast, you were to recommend a denial of second year funding and the commission were to agree with you, then no additional justice reinvestment funds would be awarded. And then the project period would end as their contract currently stipulates, which is June 30th, 2024. And any underspending or remaining funds would need to be returned to the commission within, I believe it's 15 days. And then we as staff would offer assistance to the county if they wanted to take us up on that offer. However, most of our assistance would be focused on preparing them for a justice reinvestment application for the 2025-2027 cycle. So before we talk about Clackamas County in particular, I wanted to pause to see if there's any questions about the process or your decision here today.
I do not see anyone raising their hands or waving their hands, so I think we're good, Ian.
Okay, great. So as I mentioned before, when you all met in the fall and recommended that Clackamas County receive a 1-year provisional funding, you did articulate a few questions that you wanted the Clackamas County to respond to. Those questions went to the Criminal Justice Commission. They agreed with your questions, and then those questions were passed along to Clackamas County. Over the last several months, myself and many others on the Justice Reinvestment team have met with Clackamas County over these months. We've worked with them through their application, and their application reflects, it is in response to these 3 questions that you articulated back in the fall. And so I'll just very briefly go through those questions. The first question directed the county to conduct a review and thoroughly explain the programmatic reasons for the lack of a decline in prison usage over the last decade. The second one is to conduct a review and explain the programmatic reasons for the recent increase in property crime intakes. We put a date range on that to help Clackamas County speak to the recency of that, which was July 1, 2022 to June 31st, 2023. And then lastly, we asked them to provide an update on the efforts being made to provide culturally responsive services and what actions have been taken following the recommendation of a 3-year study completed by county partners, as mentioned in Clackamas County's final application. So those are the 3 questions. Before we get to their answers, though, I'm going to pass it over to Catherine to kind of orient us to the data that we were looking at back in the fall.
All right, thanks, Ian. For the record, my name is Catherine Talon. I'm a research analyst with CJC, and I just have 2 slides for you all. They should look really familiar. The goal of showing these data slides is really to just provide context. Thinking back to when you all asked particularly the first 2 questions that Ian just mentioned, when you asked those 2 questions of Clackamas County, this is what their data looked like. and then what it looks like now, which is fairly similar for both questions. But for question 1, you all asked Clackamas County to look into the sort of lack of decline in prison usage over the last decade. At that point, when you all asked that question, we were looking at the July 2023 data. This is our typical prison use plot that you all are likely very familiar with. This is a rolling sum of prison usage for Clackamas County from 2012 forward, including our baseline. And I think the context that helps most with this question is that if we look from 2013 to about 2023, we see that outside of sort of what we would consider maybe the COVID period of time, Clackamas County's prison use remains fairly steady and a little bit above their baseline. The only difference between this plot and what you saw when you asked that question is that we now have data through March, which isn't too terribly different from what we were looking at in July. All right, and so this second plot here may look a little bit different to you all than what we usually look at for property crime, but it is the same plot that we have in our dashboard, just made a lot larger so that we can focus on it for this question. So you all asked Clackamas County to explain or go into possible programmatic reasons for a recent increase in property crime intakes. And like Ian mentioned, we defined recent to mean between July 1st, 2022 and June 30th, 2023. So this is just a line plot of the number of property crime intakes. So this isn't prison use, this is number of intakes over that time period. We see an increase there, and then just a little bit of data beyond that June of 2023, which again, is not very different than what we saw when we were looking at the data in July.
All right, thank you, Catherine. So with that, we'll go ahead and proceed to the application review itself. Here are the next few slides. This is maybe just a little bit of orientation of what I'll be discussing here for the next few minutes. I'll start us off by reviewing the existing Justice Reinvestment Program funded, programs that Clackamas County has, and then we'll look in, then immediately pivot to their responses to those questions. We'll first take a look at their answers to the prison usage questions, those two initial questions, and as well as their plans to address prison usage. And then lastly, we'll take a look at that third question, which was a question around the provision of culturally responsive services. So Clackamas County's JRP grant application for the 2023-2025 grant cycle included funding for 3 programs. I won't read everything on this slide here. This is mostly just to serve as a reminder. They are funding a pretrial program, which looks very similar to most every other pretrial program across the state. I will come back to that because their pretrial program, like many others across the state, is actually being taken over by the Oregon Judicial Department, and I'll talk about that later. But their second funded program is what they refer to as CSAP, the Corrections Substance Abuse Program. As the name sort of implies, it is a drug and alcohol treatment program, and it's really focused on individuals who otherwise might go to prison who do have a risk to return to substance use. Then the third program is short-term transitional leave, very similar again to other programs that you might see across the state. They're focused on serving justice-involved individuals who are presently in DOC custody, who are eligible to be released early back to the community as part of the short-term transitional leave, and who will release to Clackamas County. So the first question that they answered was providing a programmatic review of the lack of decline in prison usage over the last decade. Here I should probably say that because of the natural constraints of PowerPoint, I'm not able to do their application justice. I trust that you all have read the application, that you've seen all the work that they put into it. And so what I'm providing here is just a high-level overview. This is by no means comprehensive of their answers. Here, I'll note that the answers they provided here, they noted that the reasons for the lack of reduction over the last 10 years are layered and complex, and that's not something that I can answer with bullet points, let alone 3 of them. They do note, however, some regional impacts that are somewhat unique to Clackamas County. They noted in their application that public safety in the Portland metropolitan area could be better viewed as an ecosystem that sprawls across jurisdictional boundaries. Here where I live in Salem, Oregon, the jurisdictional boundary between Marion and Polk County is quite stark. It's called the Willamette River. That is not the case in Clackamas County, where it butts up against either Washington County or Multnomah County. They also identified some barriers to CSAP participation, to that drug and alcohol treatment program that they have. And then they identified some opportunities to improve collaboration among public safety partners. So that's kind of a diagnosing of the problem. This next slide contains a few of the steps that they plan to take or are taking to address prison usage. I mentioned earlier the JRP-funded pretrial program. That is anticipated to sunset, or at least the JRP responsibility portion of it to sunset either this summer or fall. The local circuit court will be taking over pretrial operations, which will open up previously allocated JRP funds that were going to pretrial to be used for something else. They, as a county and as a local public safety coordinating council, they've opted to expand a current program called the Clackamas County Jail Program. This will be the first time that they will use justice reinvestment funds to that. The Clackamas County Jail Program provides low barrier services in the form of cognitive behavioral interventions for individuals in custody. With this money specifically, they're looking at hiring 2 new certified alcohol and drug counselors, and this will expand the opportunities that they have to evaluate and then engage individuals in custody. In addition, this new, or rather expanded, jail program will, as they note in the application, I'll quote here, further assess individuals prior to decisions related to sentencing or in conjunction with a downward departure sentence. It would also create new avenues for eligible individuals to successfully transition from local incarceration into CSAP. Again, that's their drug and alcohol treatment program. They also indicated that the district attorney's office, as well as community corrections, will do a review of performance metrics within their existing justice reinvestment program, with a focus on downward departure sentences in particular. So they're still in the early phases of this increased collaboration, but this very well may result in, and they note this in their application, in a redesign of the process of evaluation and screening. With the expansion of the jail program, they anticipate more opportunities for screening. And so this may result in more individuals being placed within a justice reinvestment program like CSAP. They are also going to take a look at the evaluation reports and what is sent over to decision makers, including those within the district attorney's office. These reports may include a more detailed and holistic review of an individual's history, criminogenic needs, and the suitability for a departure sentence. And so this is, these bullet points here are a crude encapsulation of a much more eloquent description of what they intend to do and how they intend to address some of those concerns that they identified, or challenges that they identified in response to that first question. The second question that they were tasked with answering was to do a programmatic review and plan around increases in property crime in the recent history. So they noted here
Ian,
that, yes.
I see Rep. Conrad has his hand up. I'm not sure.
Please.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Ian. Because you had the slide up with the CADC 2s, I was going to ask questions about them. I'm happy to wait to the end. Didn't know when is the be best to ask questions about some of this.
Now would be a great time.
Okay, thank you. So my question is, and I didn't get it in the report, so my apologies if I missed it. Some of the specifics about what the CADC 2s would be doing. I didn't see whether these are brand new, whether there are additional CADC 2s already on staff, the amount of money that we're talking about. I never saw a dollar figure, so just curious about what that looks like. And then I didn't see anything about any baseline data or any goals of what they're going to try to achieve. I saw qualitative descriptions, but I didn't see anything that was quantitative. So just kind of trying to understand a little bit more of what the starting point is and what we hope that ending point is going to be.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to take a stab at that, and then perhaps my friends from Clackamas County could step in and correct where I go astray. But this is an expansion of an existing program, so there would be new staff brought on. Part of the reason for the lack of dollar figures, for example, is the way that this process is structured. They're responding to the questions that you all identified in the fall, which didn't, that's really asked them to identify the challenges. They've kind of gone above and beyond and identified solutions as well in a separate process that they're conducting right now with myself and other staff that I work with. They're proposing an adjustment request that would put dollar amounts to these things. And so at a high level, they plan on hiring on these 2 certified alcohol and drug counselors. I don't remember off the top of my head the dollar amount there, and they may still be finalizing those dollar amounts. But yeah, Captain McDonald, do you want to step in?
Yeah, and specifically to those 2 positions, that was a starting point. We're looking at working with a community-based provider that is doing work in a couple other jurisdictions in jails. Specifically, we believe we can start this refinement of the jail-based program sooner than trying to hire our own county-based employees. We've had a conversation. I don't have a dollar figure, but generally working with a community-based provider will be less expensive than working with the county directly. They indicate they have someone already available that they could see work in that program. If we can, start this with them, that would be ideal. The reason for this is assessing individuals in custody and having enough staff. We have therapists that work in our CSAP program that we contract for that currently do our assessments for when we identify someone who is eligible for CSAP, but that takes time out of their day to actually go up to the jail and do those assessments. So we'd like to expand that and also have those individuals be in that jail program on a daily basis during the week and interact with the individuals in custody prior to them transitioning to CSAP. So we kind of see a jail-based program where they're assessed and also engage in programming prior to going into CSAP. We believe sometime in a program prior to entering CSAP, we have a greater chance of success in them staying in the program than just a short interaction with them in custody and returning to the community in the program. It allows them to stabilize on items such as medication or medication assisted treatment and a number of things we engage with them with our MAT program in jail. So I think I captured most of it. Happy to answer additional questions or clarify.
A quick clarification. Are there any other CADC 2s there? You mentioned therapists. So this is going to augment staff with new positions, or are they going to augment other CADC 2s that are currently there?
So there are no there's no CADCs in the jail program. We utilize the therapists that we have in our CSAP program to come up and do that essentially ASAM for criteria to assess their level of treatment need and appropriateness to the program. So this would allow us to not only assess individuals for CSAP, but our goal here is to be able to engage individuals in other treatment programs as necessary. Like the report says, there are some individuals that CSAP is not capable of handling that are dual diagnosis, but there are some beds available for that level of treatment in the metro area that we could see as an opportunity. So we're trying to expand some of the focus and engagement with the population that could be eligible for a downward departure, and the greater opportunity we have to do an assessment, have that level of treatment readiness, And that ASAM, it allows us to put them on lists for other treatment programs if we're full or they're not right for our program.
Great. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Ian?
All right. Okay, and if others have questions, please feel free to interrupt me. My visibility of everybody else on this call is limited, so please feel free to interrupt.
So thanks, Ian, for that invitation.
Oh, please do.
This is a question I probably for Catherine. On the graph that I think it was slide 2, maybe it was slide 1, that you had presented. Yes, that one there. I also, this is related to the information in the application from Clackamas County, but I understand that sometimes the jail utilization gets captured for people that are non-residents in the county of conviction. Is that still the case with these graphs? Because it was referenced that it's more of a metro issue, right? So in other words, if somebody from Portland that lives in Portland commits a crime in Clackamas County, prosecuted and serves prison time, is that captured on this graph or the place where they reside?
So the simple answer is yes. So if someone who is not a resident of Clackamas County is prosecuted and goes to prison on Clackamas County charges, yes, they are captured in this plot. That prison use is assigned to Clackamas County. The less simple answer is that oftentimes folks will have charges from multiple different counties or will have committed crimes in multiple different counties. And it depends on sort of the process in which they go to prison, which county it gets assigned to. So on the same, or I guess on the other side of that, there are folks also who are from Clackamas County who have committed crimes elsewhere, and those may be recorded for other counties. So the majority of the time, I would say the Clackamas County prison use is likely assigned to, or is from folks from Clackamas County, but not all of the time. Hopefully that answers your question.
The clarification on that, meaning that they were processed and went through the Clackamas County Circuit Court, or that they, just because they are a resident? I was always under the impression it would be the county that they were actually convicted would be the one that they'd be assigned.
That is correct.
Okay.
County of conviction.
Thank you.
All right, Ian, I think we can go forward.
Okay.
Someone, yeah, okay. Yep, we're good.
Okay. All right. So the second question asked them to take a look at the recent increase in property crime intakes. Their answer is complex as well, but at a high level, they note that the existing system of governance is not designed to provide services for a prison-eligible population with out-of-county residency. And so a plan of action that they will begin initiating is Clackamas County's Community Corrections intends to work more closely with Multnomah County's Department of Community Justice on cases involving Multnomah County residents. They provide an example in their application where they indicate that perhaps they can do work with Multnomah County to do an initial assessment on somebody who is a Multnomah County resident. However, they're being processed through Clackamas County Circuit Court, and maybe they can get them started with Clackamas County CSAP until such a time when they can be transferred to Multnomah County's DCJ. They also there's a few different permutations of how this could shake out, but the end result, what they anticipate is that they plan to have more conversations with Multnomah County DCJ to see if they can help fewer Multnomah County residents go to prison simply from Clackamas County, simply because of their residency. And then the final question that they were tasked with answering was around the provision of culturally responsive services. As you all may recall, in their application, their final application, they made reference to a 3-year study. And so you all posed the question on what is the update to this 3-year study? The high level answer is that the study is almost concluded, but not yet concluded. And so it's in the final stages of reviews, and they anticipate a series of recommendations to be delivered to the county shortly. Once the county has received them, the county's local public safety coordinating council will be briefed on the material, and then they'll take a look at the recommendations that are specific to the partner agencies that participate in the local public safety coordinating council. And then they'll take a look at what they can do both individually and then collectively as a criminal justice system to improve how they provide culturally responsive services. That being said, Clackamas County did identify some actions that they plan to take regardless of the outcome of the recommendations from the study. They're currently working to increase the fidelity of the behavior change plans across diversion to account for responsivity factors. Those might include gender, trauma, race, as well as culture. They're also working to identify ongoing equity training for their probation officers. They're in communication with the Department of Public Safety Standards and Training, the academy that trains POs, to look at ongoing trainings that are available for them. They are also working with their contracting department to rework their request for proposal for among their largest contracts, which include providing services to require, service delivery to include evidence-based as well as culturally responsive provision of services. And that's for their housing and one other contract that I'm blanking on right now. And then their district attorney's office recently established an advisory panel that's comprised of members that are representative of the community that will inform him and his office as they make decisions of impact to both this grant and then to the broader county. And then they're conducting a review of client-facing documents to ensure that they are translated into the different languages that the county has identified as safe harbor languages. And so that goes well beyond just English and Spanish. Representative Conrad.
Thank you. And just a quick question for the ongoing equity training for POs. I'm just curious, have the POs identified training that they want? Have they identified an area where they feel that they're lacking? So if they've gone through DPSST and they're coming out into the workforce, is there a gap? Is there training that they're lacking in, or something that they feel that they only have superficial understanding for, and are they asking for something? And again, getting at, is that even there? And is that another barrier or something else that we should be looking at?
Yeah, I will defer to Captain McDonald on that.
Thank you for the question, Representative. I would say that our officers, like many officers around the state, have received kind of some baseline training in this space. It's been very generalized. And what we're really looking for is more specific training within their role as a PO as they interact with folks on supervision in the context of an office visit, in the context of our assessments and our field work. What specifically can they be doing differently to be more culturally, or as an example, responsive to their clients as they deliver, cognitive behavioral interventions, as they visit them in the field, and even as they use our risk need assessment tools. The way that we ask questions, the way that we interact with these individuals really matters. There hasn't been a lot of training that's this specific, but I think it's important that we pursue that. So my recent conversations with folks from DPSST has been about, can we create a train the trainer of sorts from professionals in our field that can offer more specific guidance in this area. So that's really what we're looking to develop, if that answers your question.
It does. Thank you very much.
All right, before we go forward, Captain McDonald, the individual who just spoke, could we just put his name on the record, please?
That's Deputy Director Chris Chandler.
Thanks, Chris. Ian?
All right. So with that slide, that actually concludes what I have prepared for Clackamas County's second year application review. At this time, if you'd like, you of course could begin a discussion and then a vote on their second year funding.
All right, I think that's would put us basically we're in number 4 under the action items. So I'm going to get back to where I can see the screen of everyone and just go ahead and open it up for any ongoing questions or discussion based on what our action item is to determine whether or not second year funding should go forward. All right, I do not, oh, there goes a couple of hands. Rep Conrad first, and maybe there's a second one in the queue. Let me see. I think you're number 2, Rep. Let me just see who the number 1 was.
Commissioner Ojiro.
Ojiro, yes, okay, I see it now. Why don't you go first, and then we'll follow with Representative Conrad.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that I was very impressed with the work that Clackamas County folks put together for us to review for the second year proposal. And I am supportive of moving forward. I think that the analysis was thoughtful, and I look forward to seeing continued data as they are able to tease apart the factors that are leading to this spike in the difficulty in reducing the prison population, excuse me, from Clackamas County.
All right, thank you. Rep Conrad.
Thank you. Yeah, a non-voting member, but I don't see a reason why it should not go forward. You know, I appreciate the CADC2s getting into earlier intervention, trying to get them going. And I too appreciate the report of thoroughness, particularly for me, some of the geography and looking at that whole ecosystem was incredibly helpful. So whoever put that report together, my many thanks. It was nicely done. So thank you.
Thank you. All right, I don't see any other questions or comments. I think what would be appropriate now is to go ahead and have a motion. I don't know if staff, if you have a motion prepared, but I'm thinking based on some other non-voting positions I'm holding that we need to have that motion come from a voting member at this time.
Thank you, Senator.
I got
this
DA.
is Nate Galley-Ran. Can
Okay.
you hear me?
Yeah, Nate, I was going to say, I see Patty Perlow has just put her hand up.
Oh,
so Patty, we'll let you go
ahead,
first.
Patty.
I was just going to move to approve the second year funding for Clackamas County.
All right, and Nate, would you like to do a second on that?
I'll second.
Excellent. So for the record, we have DA Perlow making the motion, and Nate Goran making a second. And so now we're opening it up for discussion. Again, I do not see anyone raising their hands or making any motions, verbalizing they'd like to have any discussion. So let's go ahead and call for a vote. And Ian, I'll turn it over to you and your staff to call out for the voting members.
Will do. Thank you. Patty Perlow.
Aye.
Matt Scales is excused. Lisa Norton.
Yes.
Sarah Stewart is excused. Nate Galley-Ran.
Yes.
Xanthopy Ojiro.
Aye.
Nicole Morrissey O'Donnell.
Yes.
That is everyone, Senator.
All right, thank you. It passes unanimous for those that are here. And so that will be noted for second funding as our recommendation to the full commission. I believe that closes out our action item for number 4. And if that's the case, then we are going to move to item number 5, which is the review of the House Bill 3078 that was passed in 2017 as a legislative report. And looks like Monica, you're going to be leading the discussion on that?
Yes, thank you, Chair.
Okay, please go ahead when you're ready.
Absolutely. Let me get the presentation up. Sorry, lost my slide. Give me one second.
That's okay.
All right, thank you all. Good afternoon, Chair Przanski and members of the committee. My name is Monica Benton, and I am a research analyst here at the CJC. Today, I'll be discussing House Bill 3078 in our report this year. It passed in 2017, as Senator Przanski noted, and its main purpose, the bill itself affected a lot of things. It was kind of a new iteration of 3194, which created the JRP program. But this report itself intends to report on the impact of prison utilization, recidivism, and public safety. It includes information about a lot of different programs, including the Family Sentencing Alternative Pilot Program, or FSAP, Short-Term Transitional Leave, STTL for short. It also includes some ID theft and Theft 1 sentencing, and what we'll talk about today, the JRI Competitive Grant County Prison Use. As I noted on the slide here, you can access our website or this report on our website through this link, or you can just search it up. And it's also distributed in the meeting materials. So if you'd like to take a closer look at the stuff I talk about today relating to JRI, or if you'd like to look at any of these other analyses of these other programs, you're welcome to do that on that full report. But today we're going to be focusing on just the JRI competitive grant. Just a refresher, so we're all on the same page. The formula grant, it's distributed by a formula determined by state law. And in this case, it supports CBOs that advance the goals of JRI. And the competitive grant on the other side is a companion grant. It specifically supports downward departure. And unlike the formula grant, the competitive grant awards are not fixed by a formula, so you all vote on the allocation on those, as you've seen before. And also in the context here, prison usage, in the context of JRP, it only measures property, drug, and driving crimes. So when you look at prison usage on the y-axis in the next couple graphs, that's only the JRI crimes of property, drug, and driving. So this first graph here, just to orient ourselves to the different elements, we've got prison months on the left. This is just the JRI prison use compared to baseline for the large counties only. And we'll take a look at the small counties in a second as well. The baseline here is noted as a black bar. It's the same numbers as we've seen on the in the red line is what I'm looking at. That's the stuff that you're used to seeing. It's that same numbers, but it's just a different form here, so we can see them all compared to each other. It's scaled to 1 year in this instance, and we are comparing it to 2022 and 2023. In the past, we've compared it to 2-year increments, but we wanted to get a good post-COVID, post-lockdown number for these counties to make sure that we compare them in a way that's accurate to just the way everything is going now. And so we get a good view of what's actually happening post-COVID. And I'll move on to the second one. This is the same layout here, but for small counties, it's the JRI prison use months on the left. That scale's a little smaller because they are smaller counties. We're working with smaller numbers, but it's the same kind of thing. Baseline in the black, and 22 and 2023 are in the different gray scales. And generally what we're looking at here in these two graphs is a general downward trend. Due to the fact that this is mostly data that's on a large scale, we're not looking at specific, we can't discern specific reasonings as to why these trends are going on. That needs a little bit more analysis and a little bit more data from more years. We only have about 3 funding cycles here to look at, and a lot of those were disrupted by COVID. But what we're looking at here is a general trend downward, and that's a good metric to look at least to begin looking over what is happening here with prison usage. Lastly, I want to look at the JRI prison use, comparing the formula and competitive recipients to the formula only recipients. So the formula and competitive recipients, those were all the counties that were listed on the previous 2 graphs. That's those that are squished together on the left. So that's basically all that information combined into one. As you'll note on the left, the months, the prison months, that's that prison usage again. It's a much larger scale. So it goes up to 40,000. In the past, even on the large counties, it only went up to about 8,000. So we're dealing with a much larger scale. And as you can see, the formula and competitive recipients show a much greater decrease from their baseline compared to the formula only recipients, though there is still a decrease in the formula only recipients, although it does appear smaller in this scale. But comparing those two, the formula and competitive recipients have a larger difference. And I just want to note before I close out, this isn't determinative of the effectiveness of the JRP competitive grant overall, but it is a good point to consider as we explore the effectiveness of the competitive grant funding. So that's the JRI section of the 3078 report. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to hear them. Sorry, Patty.
Patty goes first, please.
Thanks. I just am wanting to put on the radar as you're going forward with this, some of the difficulties that are coming with the pretrial release, that we're having people accumulate more cases. Is there some way in the data to track as we're tracking prison usage, how many cases people are getting sentenced on from each county? Because I think we're just having a hard time getting people to engage in our programs because they're out committing more crimes because they're released pre-trial. So I just think that's going to be something we're going to want to, well, it won't be me, but somebody's going to want to have that data about how many crimes are being crimes of conviction there are, or how many case numbers there are for each of the individuals.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. I will say we're definitely always looking for more metrics to just see what's going on. And as this program gets bigger, there's a lot more things to look at. So that's definitely a good point. Catherine, I saw you popped on. Do you have something else you want to add?
Yeah, I'll just say that we do have that information and we could look at that. That's just not something like number of cases isn't something that we have sort of tracked either in the report or on any dashboards in the past. But if that is something that there's particular interest in light of the pretrial release issues, we are able to calculate that.
All right, let me follow up on that. So let's, what Patty brings up, I think is something that we should be measuring, just for the simple fact, knowing what impact the statute has in the sense of the change that we've made. If we do that, though, I'm assuming we have the data to look pre-trial release as to having some type of a baseline to work and to compare against.
So I'm gonna give a half answer on that. I don't work with our pretrial data personally, but we could likely look into establishing some sort of a baseline. I think that we are able to develop one of those. We just don't have it on hand.
All right, Commissioner Agarwal, next.
Thank you, Chair Przanski. I think that it's also going to be particularly important to track those numbers as suggested by DA Perlow moving forward, given the deflection programs that are coming online. I think that we're only going to see more people racking up more cases pre-trial over time, and it'd be nice to be able to tease out some of those dynamics. So, and I don't know whether some of that data collection is already planned in the context of the House Bill 4002 deflection data collection.
To answer your question, there is a bit of that on the impacts 4002, everything associated with that. Those kinds of metrics, we're still trying to figure out which ones to focus on. So I will definitely double check and see, because that's something that we should definitely be looking at.
All right, Nate, I think you're next.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Monica, on this this particular graph here, is there going to be a data reset for the baseline and update it from the 2012 information to more recent information? And then I'd be curious to see what that looks like now as it relates to the formula recipients as well as the competitive recipients.
Yeah, thank you. We're definitely looking at updating the baseline to be more current and just to reflect our needs. And I'll actually pop that over to Catherine, because that's part of our topics for today.
Yeah, thanks, Monica. Absolutely, we are actively working on a replacement for and an update to the baseline. We haven't discussed how that will look in this report, but it will make a difference and it will look different in this report. Right now, we're really focused on how to make the baseline more helpful for our counties in their applications, and then for you all to do assessments of JRP programs. And so our focus at the moment is getting a dashboard established, but that will have ripple effects, including this report and how it shows up, for sure.
I don't see any other questions. So Monica, if you'll please continue.
Thank you, Chair. That's all I have for today. So thank you all.
Okay. Other points that people would like to bring forward so we can make certain staff has some directive as to things we might want to be looking at in the future. All right, well, I'm not seeing anyone jumping up. Let me check real good. I just moved over from one screen to another. And Commissioner, if you want to go, I see your hand up. I don't know if that's previous or if it went back up.
Thank you, Chair. No, I raised my hand again. I guess I have one last question about the figures that Monica just shared with us. I can see that the competitive grants overall appear to have made a difference in reducing prison usage, but that's particularly true for the largest counties. And I think it's the large counties that are driving that data. And looking at the figure 5.2 for the smaller counties, I'm not so sure that it's made a difference there. And I'm curious to know why it's made so much more difference for the large counties than it has for the small ones. That's just where my mind goes.
Yeah, that's I'm definitely curious as well to see that difference. If we put, that last graph, for example, compare it also by large and small, I'm curious to see. It would be more difficult to discern the why, especially with the few years of data that we have, but for sure it would be very telling to see, just, helpful to look at that a little more separate.
I know the programs are different, so it's apples and oranges too. And it may just be that when you have a small county and small dollars, you can't do as much. And being able to tease that out would be helpful, especially since I come from a smaller population county.
All right. Any other thoughts or comments regarding that presentation? Ian, I think I want to kick it back to you for number 6, the review for June.
Great. Thank you, Chair. So I just have this one slide, which is going to display some information about our next meeting, which is scheduled for June 6th. It will be virtual like this one. And then we are slated to only have 2 agenda items. The first and most important of them is that we will review the supplemental round grant applications. Counties currently are working on those right now. Those applications are due May 24th. As a reminder, this is an opportunity for counties to take advantage of the unallocated Justice Reinvestment funds. So as you will recall, 3 counties chose not to apply for Justice Reinvestment funding, and so the commission opted to run a competitive process where each county could make an ask of that money. And so I and others from our team will come and speak to you about those applications. We don't yet know how many applications or what their total asks are, but we will know that come May 24th. And then the final piece is touches on a subject that I think we've had just a short conversation about. As Catherine, Monica, and others have indicated, we are looking very seriously at doing a update to our current prison usage dashboard. So my one ask in the lead up to the June meeting is if you all have time to take a long look at our current prison usage dashboard with the red horizontal baseline, and maybe jot down a few notes about what you like and what you don't like. We're having some internal conversations about developing a tool that is useful to our current reality. In recent years, the state's prison capacity has changed. Obviously, population has grown. It's been a lot of time since the initial baseline. It's been well over a decade, and of course we've had a global pandemic in the midst of that. And so our current tool is probably not adequate to the challenges that we face now and the kinds of measurements that we want to take. And so we would love to hear from you about what you like of the current tool and what you don't like. And then we'll incorporate that feedback into the conversations we're having internally, and we'll ultimately, at a later date, maybe propose something to you all to get your feedback more concretely. But we're still very much in the ideation phase right now. So we would love your honest and critical feedback at the June 6th meeting. And that's all I have, Senator.
All right. Any questions on what Ian just shared with us for the preview? If not, then are there any other items that anyone wants to bring forward for this meeting? When I see Nate, you got your hand up, please.
Yeah, thank you, Senator. Ian, on that request for feedback, is that going to be looked at least for us giving the feedback, through a lens of utilizing that specific tool to make funding decisions or recommendations? Is that what we're going to be using that tool for?
Yes, that is what we're hoping for. We will engage other constituencies to have them look at it from a different lens. The lens we would love for you all to look on and provide feedback is how you, as grant review committee members, utilize the tool at decision times. Thank you for that question.
Okay, good. And just for this group, having worked in the field for a minute, we're recognizing that there's a lot of pressure within the communities to either stand up new services or maintain new services within the communities. And there are some obstacles, I think, for just local jurisdictions to continue to have people not go to prison, but to stay in their communities. And I would just encourage, however we can influence decision makers on investing this money into the local jurisdictions so they can keep folks out of prison, specifically the housing resources, peer support, peer mentors, treatment in general. How can we influence those jurisdictions to really prioritize the folks that we're keeping out of prison in the community? And I don't know that Justice Reinvestment can fund all of those things to make this thing sustainable. So I also think that from the onset of 3194, when we started Justice Reinvestment programming, since that time we have closed 2 prisons in Oregon, and there's going to be a plateauing effect, I think, for our justice system. And I don't know that we could continue to expect a downward trend of prison utilization from a baseline that gets reset. So I would just say that, as it relates to this group making funding determinations or recommendations to the CJC moving forward. But that's how I'm going to be looking at this tool moving forward and providing some feedback. So thank you all for the time.
Let me follow up on, Nate, what you just said. I think it's also important as this goes forward for CJC as a whole to be looking at what they bring back to the legislature as the decision makers as to how this has worked and why, even though we may have a plateau in our prison population, we still need to maintain these investments at the local level to ensure that we actually are having a direct benefit on the individual, on the county, and clearly at the state level, as to not needing to reopen wings or prisons because we're not basically supporting the individuals through that transition of non-criminality. All right, any other comments or questions? Well, if not, then I'm going to go ahead and adjourn us for today. And thanks everyone for being here. And thanks for staying on task. We were able to complete stuff within an hour. So with that, please enjoy that 30 minutes that you have scheduled. Don't tell anyone that you got out early, and you may be able to get some work done. Take care. Be well, everyone.